Hey everybody, it's Gary Lucas. I'm late. I'm late for a very important date to play for you. Uncharacteristic of me, I know. But there's a lot of stuff going on, and the wind is very active out there. There's Old Glory over that oligarch's. What is it? A 10-story mansion going up across the way. It's really a sight to behold. And anyway, I'm here to play for you and solo acoustic fireworks. Get the fuck out of my way. Anyway, no. Just kidding. This is an instrumental piece. Gee, it's gone through a lot of metamorphoses, but I kind of love it. I remember playing this in a jazz club in Holland called the Noorderlicht down in, where was it? Tilburg, where my old friend Joep Ver hails from, Joep Verkooyen, and they have two big jazz clubs in Holland, basically. They have the Bim House, of which I must have played, 30, 35 times, including selling it out a couple of times. Once with Fast and Bulbous when we were on the road, when our first album had come out, me and Philip Johnston and Jesse Krakow, Joe Feidler, Dave Sewellson, Rob Hankey. Who am I leaving out there? Apals, big Apals. Another time with my Chinese pop from the 30s project, The Edge of Heaven, and that was during the Holland Festival. So, I played many times there. It's a beautiful joint. And then in Tilburg, they have the Noorderlicht, which is the other jazz club in sort of central Holland. And I did a performance there with a whole bunch of students from the local music academy who were big Jeff Buckley aficionados. And I was teaching them some of these unreleased songs. I've had stockpiled for a while, and they were all really good. And yeah, jazz, baby, jazz. It's where it's at. They always will categorize me or miscategorize me, as the case may be, and stick me in all sorts. I mean, when Tower Records in its heyday, when my first album came out, it was actually filed in 4 different categories. It was in the jazz section. This is Skeleton at the Feast. It was in the rock section. It was in the country section. Go figure. And it was in the world music section. And which is fine by me. I mean, it limits maybe identification of music, of your own music, by people who don't peer past labels. But, I was always of the Don Van Vliet, Captain Beefheart school. Get rid of the labels. Hence, lick my decals off, baby. I mean, that was one of the meanings Don ascribed to that little aphoristic title there. But anyway, let's say it's just guitar music and leave it at that for now. I mean, how do you characterize Raindrops and Roses? Anyway, okay, The Seven Faces of Dr. Lowe was on again the other night. This is one of my favorite films. It had a big influence on me as a boy. It's a really sweet fantasy film. It's not, overly sophisticated, but it's entertaining, and I think it still holds up. The animation team who worked on it were spectacular. Jim Danforth, who was kind of a protege of Ray Harryhausen, did some of it, including a great Medusa with snakes and a large serpent who has the appearance of a character in the film played by Arthur O'Connell. And most spectacularly, the Loch Ness Monster, which is a little guppy in a fishbowl that, upon contact with the air, doubles its size every 10 seconds until it reaches dragon size and grows 7 heads, and quite effective in the film. And the music is by Lee Harline, who famously wrote When You Wish Upon a Star for Disney. And I think when they gave him this assignment, they said, honestly, hey, let's put in a little of that Danny Kaye, Hans Christian Andersen music, which was a very successful film aimed at the youth market, and some beautiful songs by Sylvia Fine, his wife, as the lyricist, and other folks who worked on that. I'm trying to think. But some of the motif of the theme from Dr. Lowe definitely, I would say, derives from Hans Christian Andersen, the main theme. But I like them both, and, there's only 12 notes in the Western scale, as I've pointed out a few times, and they're all good ones. That is, anyway, the tempered scale. And so recombinations of these notes in various patterns has always intrigued me. And when does a quotation cease being a quotation and a thievery? These are questions that keep tune detectives up at night, but it's difficult to prove in court, that's for sure. One of my favorite books growing up was Louis Neiser's My Life in Court. He was a very well-known public lawyer, exponent of law, who in this book talked about famous cases he had represented or sued on, and one being a case where a French songwriter who had published a melody in kind of an obscure song portfolio as sheet music claimed that there had been plagiarism involved on a song called Rum and Coca-Cola, which was made famous by the Andrews Sisters. And it was written, I think the main writing credit was Maury Amsterdam, who played famously the second banana comedy writer in the Dick Van Dyke Show. So he had a sideline as a songwriter. And they brought in all sorts of expert witnesses, including a guy called Sigmund Spaeth, the tune detective, to try and, sway a jury that like 6 notes of a scale had appeared in this passage and it was the same notes as here and there. I mean, you could go on and on all day with it. I guess the most famous one that's just been won in the favor of Jimmy Page, and that is the Stairway to Heaven, supposed appropriation of the spirits intro from the first Spirit album that had Fresh Garbage on it. There's a song called Sagittarius, and we're in Sagittarius now, are we not? And to my ears, when I AB'd them, I was like, damn, man, this is like... I would say this thing inspired this intro of Stairway to Heaven. Of course, it veers off into something else, but, you know, they tried it out, numerous descending scales. I've used them myself, saying that this wasn't specific. But then again, those guys toured with Spirit, and they had the record in the library. And especially Plant was a huge fan of West Coast psychedelic music and still covers songs from that era in a solo album. So I don't know. But Randy California, may he rest in peace, should get his day in the sun anyway. He was a great guitar player and songwriter. And real name Randy Wolf. He used to work at Manny's Music, which is sadly closed. And was friends with Jimi Hendrix there, who we met when Jimmy called himself Jimmy James. And Randy moved to California, hence his new name, courtesy Hendrix, Randy California. And worked on all sorts of great albums. My favorite, if you can seek it out, came out on Epic, and it's Captain Copter and the Fabulous Twirly Birds. And I believe on a couple of tracks, Mitch Mitchell, Noel Redding appear. Supposedly even on the cover, though. It's hard to see them. It's their backs to the camera, and they're all getting into a helicopter. But I digress. I love digressions. In fact, one of my favorite books, speaking of which, is Nabokov, Pale Fire, which is nothing but footnotes, basically. You have a little bit of an Urs story, but the real action is going on these unreliable narrator-driven notes, footnotes, where the footnotes overwhelm the story itself. Any of the books by Thomas Nashe, Nashe, great English satirist, also are filled with digressions, and that's it makes it interesting, man. You know, every day is a winding road, and it's the journey is more important sometimes than the destination. Okay, I'm gonna do some music. I played at the United Nations a couple years ago for Holocaust Remembrance Day. And I chose this piece. It's not by a Jewish composer, actually. It's Leos Janáček. But to me, he's one of my favorites. And I think the vibe overall was appropriate for Holocaust Remembrance Day. So this is number 15, the Allegro from On an Overgrown Path, a beautiful cycle of piano pieces. All right. Yeah. And that is another Czech classical piece by Smetana. And Bedřich Smetana, from his magnum opus Ma Vlast, My Country, and that is De Moldau, which is a very famous river running through a whole swath of Eastern Europe, but particularly in the Czech Republic, through Slovakia. And this piece was kind of appropriated, speaking of appropriation, by the State of Israel, and was morphed into what became Hatikva, the Israeli national anthem, and which actually has an author listed, but in researching this over the years, they said, well, it was based on an old folk melody. And perhaps Smetana also based this theme on an old Czech folk melody. I don't know. I mean, these discussions always end up with either litigation or a big drinking celebration. Everybody into the gene pool. Yeah, it's like really funny, but when you try and investigate the Ur blues, let us say, did it really originate in Central Africa, for instance? I mean, there was a record out, a box set on Columbia, I recall in the 60s and 70s, called The Blues, that traced electric and country blues, American country blues, back to pygmy music. There was an example of it on there, which had some traces of maybe blues scales. I made a case for Chinese music in my Edge of Heaven project as also, sharing similar flatted fifth and seventh scales, pentatonic scales mainly, with the blues. And I think that you can find examples throughout music, because I think, it's basically one big melting pot, and every culture out there, including, cultures that are celebrated with Celtic music and Arabic music, Jewish music, Gypsy music, a lot of them partake of the same scales and techniques. And I think the goal is to try and make an emulation of a human voice wailing, either in sorrow or in ecstasy. It can be all sorts of wails. It's like Miles Davis kind of blue. It's like all blues. There's blue blues, red blues, green blues, all the blues. And the mean reds, don't forget. So all that is to say, I think blues for me is like the main hallmark of my playing. And that even if I'm playing classical transcriptions of my own devise or Chinese pop music, I bring a sort of blues sensibility into it. It's just, it's fundamental to me, Hey. Okay, well, that about wraps it up for today, and what a pleasure it is to play for you, as always. And let's look over the neighborhood. Look at those poor guys out there on that roof. I don't know what they're building. Maybe it's a swimming pool. I don't know, or a hot tub. There's a little platform to dive off of. I really can't figure it out. Here's the oligarchs mansion with the Old Glory waving away here. Not a lot of activity on that building site. I know some of it has been halted because of the resurgence of the virus. Really awful. But in any case, I'm still here, and so are you, and it's great to be in your company. I love to play for you. Please tune in again. Geez, what day is it today? Oh, we're coming up on Thursday. All right, I'll play for you again this Thursday. As always, Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Big hug. Love you guys. Talk to you soon. Bye. Be safe.